Hello everyone and welcome back to my workshop. I'm Deziel and today we're continuing the block pattern. We're doing the skirt block. Today we're going to do the easiest block piece that we have to do. It is the skirt, and remember that all the steps are in the little PDF that I prepare for you, and you will find it in my Wix site. To start, you're going to need a piece of paper of about 80 centimeter long by 60 centimeter wide. We're going to start the skirt block by the center back and we'll go all the way to the center front. For my example, I'll do a center back length of 70 centimeter, but you could decide to do it a little shorter, no problem, because you know that from the hip level, the bottom part is like a rectangle part, so it's very easy to change the length. Now you have two new points. On top you have letter A and at the bottom you have letter C. Now the following step is going to be to place the hip level. For my example, the measurement is going to be 21 centimeter from A down. This is going to be the B point. Now we're going to trace a square line from these 3 points, A, B, and C. The only little difference is that the square line that we do for the top point, the A point, we're going to do it just halfway on the paper, but both bottom point will trace all across the paper. The next step is going to be to place the hip measurement, 1/4 back hip measurement. And to find that measurement, you had to do a little calculation. Find a 1/4 of the all around hip measurement minus 5 millimeter just to move the seam a little bit towards the back, but plus 1 centimeter for ease. For my example, my little calculation give me 24.25 centimeter. And this point is going to be called B1. Now from point B1, we're going to square a line all the way to the bottom, touching the line C, and also towards the top, going over the line A by 1.5 centimeter. That means that my side seam segment will be 71.5 centimeter since my center back was 70 centimeter. We now have two new points. The top one that goes over by 1.5 centimeter is going to be point A1, and all the way to the bottom at the intersection of the C line, you're going to have point C1. Now the next step is going to be to find the measurement for what I call the balance of the side seam. We want to find how much the waist has to be smaller at the side seam for both back and front, because it is the same measurement. The way to find it, it's a little calculation you have to do. It's at the bottom of page 16. It's telling you basically that you have to take the full half hip measurement, including the ease, minus the half waist measurement, so back and front, including the ease and including the darts. When you find the difference between the two of them, it's telling you how much you have to remove on each side at the waist level. Now for today's example, the difference between my hip and my waist with the calculation gives me a difference of 8.5 centimeter between hip and waist. So I'm going to trace 90 degrees from my side seam. From point A1, half of that, so 4.25 on each side of point A1. We now have two new points, A1 prime on the back side and A1 prime that will belong to the front. Now we're going to place the dart for the back block, and the measurement for the dart is going to be at a distance of 1/12 of the hip measurement that we measure from point A. For my example, my measurement will be 7.9 centimeter. and this point is called A4. Now we're going to place the depth of the dart. For the back block, it's usually about 3 cm. So we're going to measure from A4 towards the side seam 3 cm. That point is called A5. Then we're going to find the center of the dart, and this point we're going to call it A2. Then we're going to trace the center of the dart, square with the waistline, all the way down to the hip line. We have a new point that we will call B2. For the next step, we're going to find a point halfway from A to A4 at the waist. You could even find it by highs. And this point, we're going to call it A3. Now we're going to connect A3 to A1 prime. Now, as you know, on the body, the hip line is not just a line, but it has a thickness. So for the construction of the block, we'll use 1/4 of the distance waist to hip, and we will keep that distance with the same measurement as the hip. So on the center back, from B, you're gonna go towards the top, 1/4 of your measurement waist hip. For my example today, that corresponds to a measurement of 5.25. So I'm going to measure from B up 5.25. Then from that new point, you're going to trace a square line from one side to the other of the paper, and you could do a little dotted line. You now have two new points. You have P, that is going to be the pivot of the dart, and you have at the intersection of the dotted line and the side seam P1. We could now trace the dart from P to A4, and you could extend a little towards the top, and from P to A5 also extend a little bit towards the top. So that complete the construction line for the back of the skirt. I know we still have to curve the waist and the side seam, but we'll do that as soon as we completed the front block pattern. Now I just move a little bit my paper so we could do the front plan, and we're going to start pretty much like we did in the back. We'll start with the front hip measurement, and the measurement comes also from a little calculation. It is 1/4 of the hip measurement plus 5 millimeter because we want to move a little bit or shift the side seam, plus 1 centimeter ease. For today's example, my measurement is 25.25, and I'll place my measurement from point B. So now I did place my front hip measurement. That means that this point is going to be my center front. And since the bottom is all parallel, I could take this measurement and place it also at the bottom of the skirt. So I'll be able to trace my center front. For the next step, I'm going to use my meter because it's going to be easier like that. And I'm going to trace my center front from the bottom point. The measurement of the center front should be about 8 millimeter longer than my center back. If you remember, the center back was 70 centimeter. So my center front will be 70.8 centimeter. I'm going to place my 70.8 touching the two reference points that I just found, and I could trace. So on the hip line, my front hip measurement give me a new point that we will call B3. Then all the way down, we have the new point that we'll call C2. And all the way up, we have the new point that we call A6. Now from A6, we're going to do a square line, but don't go over the side seam. Now from the point A6, we're going to place the dart, and the measurement is still 1/12 of the hip measurement. The measurement for my example is still 7.9 centimeter. And this point is called A9. Now from A9, we're going to put the width of the dart for the front towards the back, and the measurement for the front dart is going to be 2 centimeter. We call this point A10. Then we find the middle of the dart. This is going to give us the point A7. Then we're going to trace from A7 square line towards the bottom until the hip line. This is giving us the point B4. Now, just like we did on the back, we're going to find the middle between A6 and A9. You could do it by eyes. You just need a little mark. We call this point A8. Then you could connect A8 to A1 prime prime on the side seam. Now we're going to find the pivot level for the front dart. That is going to be much higher than in the back, because in the front, the end of the dart is about the level of the end of your little belly, while in the back, it's the strongest part of the buttocks. So to find the pivot on the front, we're going to start with the basic measurement or distance from waist to hip that we got from the back. So for me it was 21 centimeter. We're going to divide it by 2. For me it's going to be 10.5, and we're going to place that measurement from B4. This is giving us the point P2. We're now going to trace the dart. So you trace from P2 to A10, P2 to A9, and extend a little towards the top. The plan is complete. I'm now going to fix the waistline and do the little curve on the waist. I'll start with the front, folding my paper on the segment P2, A9. Once the first side of the dart is folded, you could easily hold the pivot and just close, bringing the first side over the second side. Then using your French curve, you'll be able to trace your new waistline from A8 to A1 prime prime with a very soft curve. Then when your waistline, the curved one, is traced, you could right away use your tracing wheel and get the little jog of the curve following that curve line. We could now do the same thing for the back dart. So I'm starting with the first side of the dart, P to A4. Then you hold the pivot and bring the first side of the dart over to the second one. Then again, with the French curve, you're going to trace a nice soft line from A3 to A1 prime. Here also we trace the little jog of the dart with the tracing wheel. Now we just have the side seam curve to do. I'm going to start with the back, but it doesn't matter. What you have to do is do a very soft curve from P1 to A1 prime. Now to report the same curve on the front block, you could do two ways. You could either use the measurement that you have on your ruler and just flip it to have it on the other side, then trace. And the other way, let's say you did your curve by eyes, would be to fold on the side seam and report your back curve to have it on the other side. Now the skirt block is finished. Don't forget to put your seam allowance and try it in muslin. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I see you next time.